From the massive problems caused by Henry Cavill's departure to the way the show might have been saved by casting this Marvel star instead. Here's why an MCU legend was desperate to play Geralt of Rivia before Hemsworth's selection. You have to admit, Henry's sudden exit has left the show's future in serious jeopardy. He poured his heart and soul into the role, perfectly balancing the emotional complexity of the character with the brutality of the fight sequences. Where other actors might have played Geralt as a standard stoic hero, Cavill brought a certain vulnerability to his portrayal, and that stuff's just not easy to come by. It's especially impressive when you consider how few lines Geralt gets in the first season. Despite that, Henry was still able to depict Geralt's inner turmoil with subtle looks and grunts. Honestly, a big part of his success in The Witcher was his lifelong appreciation for the source material. You see, Henry has been a fan of the novels and video games for years, and he was quick to mention it when his casting was first announced. In his own words, he felt a deep connection to Geralt, and he leaned on that to make the character come to life. You could see it in each painstaking detail of his performance, whether it be the subtle shifts in his gaze, the set of his jaw, or even just the way he walked. The fans loved the idea of a fellow nerd leading the Netflix adaptation, and Henry paid them back for their support time and time again by fighting on their behalf. He's the guy responsible for Geralt having more lines in the second season and making him more accurate to the books. And oh, how can I forget all those times he sided with the fans? Whenever Witcher diehards took issue with changes to the source material, Cavill was right here to back them up, and even made it one of his conditions for working on the show. Now, my only question is this: why did he leave the show if he loved it so much? I mean, he had signed on for 7 whole seasons at first, so it's kind of weird that he wouldn't see it through to the end, right? Some said that he wanted to branch out into other projects, and working on The Witcher just didn't leave him with enough time for that. Because back then, he was rumored to be prepping for his return as Superman, starting with the Black Adam cameo, and following it up with several Superman-centered projects in the future. Of course, none of that panned out, with Henry getting unceremoniously fired by DC as well. But the thing is, Cavill probably didn't leave because of time constraints, the desire for other roles, or anything of that sort. Rather, it seems like the showrunners broke his one and only condition for staying with the role. They started to deviate from the source material. Word on the street is, Henry only agreed to do the role long-term so long as it stuck to the lore, and things started to go sideways when the writers kept making changes. Eventually, the creative differences proved too much to bear, and Cavill was forced to part ways with his passion project. It's also possible that the showrunners and writers didn't like Henry questioning their decisions. But since there's no way to confirm this, you can probably get the answer from some of the hints from the guy they chose to replace him with. As you know, Liam Hemsworth is going to play Geralt from Season 4 onwards, and something tells me the showrunner intentionally went for a lower-profile actor. The showrunners probably wanted someone who would shut up and do as he's told, and that's just what they're gonna get with Liam. The guy's career has been lackluster to say the least, which is why the fans have been up in arms ever since the announcement was made. I mean, does anyone even remember his role in the Hunger Games? Or anything else he's done for that matter? The guy has zero fan appeal, and that's going to be a real problem given how beloved Cavill was in the role. Regardless, it's not like Netflix and The Witcher's showrunners randomly thought of Liam. After all, he auditioned for the role way back in 2018, and while there was no way he'd get the role over Cavill, the A-lister's departure left the door wide open for Hemsworth to come into play. But did you know that another actor auditioned for the role at around the same time? He's a bona fide MCU legend, a legitimate actor in his own right, and many are calling him the superior choice to Liam Hemsworth. I'm talking about Sebastian Stan. Yep, you heard that right. The Winter Soldier was apparently one of the frontrunners for the role before Henry was cast, and I have a feeling he'd be itching to get his hands on it now. Honestly, anyone would be a better choice than Liam frickin' Hemsworth, but Sebastian Stan's appeal goes way beyond that. The Winter Soldier is one of the more complex characters in the MCU, with a moral grayness that's often strikingly similar to Geralt's. You can also see some parallels in their origin stories. Both characters are essentially physically enhanced super soldiers forged through painful trials, and they often struggle with the changes this brings to their humanity. So, if Stan was such a great fit the first time, why didn't he get the role now? I mean, it's not like Henry Cavill's standing in his way anymore. So this confirms that the showrunners want a small-time actor with a pretty face who'll do as they're told. That said, his MCU schedule must have kept him busy. Bucky's got a much more critical role in the MCU after Endgame, with a Disney Plus series to start things off, and a bunch of other appearances on the horizon. It wouldn't be surprising if Stan passed on the role given how much work he's getting in the MCU, even if he was approached after Henry's departure. He wasn't just in the running for Geralt either. There were rumors that he might play a bunch of other characters in the Witcher universe. Just for starters, Stan was also connected to the role of Eskel. In case this is the first time you've heard of him, Eskel is basically Geralt's adoptive brother. They both attended the School of the Wolf together back in the day, and he's also one of the few people that can give us a glimpse into Geralt's past. Basil Eidenbenz ended up playing Eskel instead, but the way his storyline was handled really rubbed fans the wrong way. I mean, they killed him off in the second episode of the season, even though he should have been a bigger part of the storyline. I'd say that Eskel was an even better pick for the MCU star, because it would have allowed him to make a temporary foray into the Netflix series without compromising his main gig. I'm also assuming the character wouldn't have been ruined like this if a bigger star was in the role. Apart from Eskel, some fans connected him to the role of Borscht 3 Jackdaws too. The shape-shifting knight was a core part of the first season's storyline, being one of just 2 golden dragons in the history of the continent. Sebastian getting either of these roles would have been a dream come true for the fans. The scheduling conflict seemed like a big deal, so fans felt like a guest spot or a recurring role would be a decent compromise. This would have helped Stan work around his schedule, but even that was too much to ask for. You've got to understand, fans love the thought of him playing Geralt. Just take a look at any Witcher forum, and you'll see what I mean. Even before we learned that Henry was starring in the show, fans went wild with theories that Stan would be the first actor to bring Geralt of Rivia to the small screen, so he seemed like the best actor to replace Cavill. For better or worse, the role belongs to Liam Hemsworth now, and it's no surprise that fan reactions have been almost universally negative because Sebastian Stan could have single-handedly saved the show. For one thing, he has a massive fan following thanks to his years with the MCU. Sure, he's no Superman, but the star has risen considerably after debuting as the Winter Soldier in Civil War. What's more, Stan's the same age as Cavill. One of many fan gripes about Hemsworth is that he's 7 years younger than his predecessor, which might create some jarring continuity issues if not handled well. Stan wouldn't have caused such age-related problems, and he's also clearly the better actor. Finally, there's the undeniable preference from Witcher fans themselves. There's bound to be an overlap between the MCU and Witcher fandoms, so not only would Stan's casting brought in some new viewers, it would have made current fans way happier too. In the end, it all just turned out to be a pipe dream. Sebastian Stan couldn't get anywhere near the Witcher franchise, and I guess we'll just have to make do with whatever mediocrity Liam Hemsworth brings our way. So from how he could have saved the now doomed Netflix series to the enormous mess left behind after Henry quit, this was why Sebastian Stan was desperate to steal the role of Geralt before Hemsworth's selection.